Hello, everybody, and welcome to our dental assistant clinic training. I'm glad to have you join us today, and we are going to go over a number of things that I think will be very important to you and your students as you're working in the clinic and lab area. First of all, just some basic expectations. First of all, our students and our instructors are responsible to keep their clinic areas sanitary, neat, and organized. It's easy to get messy, but let's make sure your students are picking up after themselves. Countertops and the clinic space should be kept clutter-free. Really, what we're looking for here is to set the example for what's expected in a dental office, and we know that in at least most dental offices, everything is as neat as a pin, as the way it should be, and we want to set that standard in the classroom as well. Supplies that are ordered often get dropped off in the classroom, and so you have boxes that you have to open to put supplies away. Please do that in a timely fashion. Use the packing slip that comes with the merchandise. Verify that everything was received that was ordered, and simply put it away. You do not need to save the packing slips. Invoices do go to the corporate office. However, if there's a discrepancy, then we need to talk about that. So let me know. Cardboard boxes should not be left in the classroom for extended periods of time. Everything has a home, so get in there and get it taken care of. Have your students help you. I know that you have a lot to do and you're busy, and we want to make the most of our time. This is something that students should get acclimated to, because guess what? They're going to be ordering supplies in their dental offices, and they will have the same responsibility there as well. So it's perfectly acceptable to open a box and say, all right, guys, come on over. We got to put these supplies away, and have them help you with it. The clinic drawers and cabinets should be organized. Things should be easy to find. I think labeling is a great idea. You don't have to go crazy with labeling, but labeling some, basic restorative, hygiene, dental materials, things that will help direct students and other faculty members as to where they might find something. Each campus should have a labeling machine, so reach out to your campus director if you're not sure where that's kept, and update labels or place labels, or if you have old peeling, cracking labels, let's get those replaced. Each session that students come to campus, they are responsible for the setup and tear down of the lab under your supervision, of course. It's best if you assign specific students tasks in the lab and then rotate those assignments. Rather than just saying, all right, girls, guys, go back there and open up the lab and have it be a free-for-all, give specific assignments so that not the same students aren't doing the same tasks day in and day out. Some might find certain activities more interesting or fun than others, and that's well and fine, but we need to give everybody an opportunity to practice all of those things. So setting up a rotation schedule, if you have a large class, is very helpful. It may mean if you have a large group of students that they're not all doing something at the same time. You might have one group of students opening the lab and another group of students closing the lab. If you have a large group of students, say 10, 15, 18 students, then you'll need to divvy it up. If you have a smaller size group, then, you want to go ahead and give them all an assignment and they can go back there together. New students should be taught the basic opening and closing skills so that they may participate. That begins with observation. So the first week or so, have them go back as a shadow, and they may watch and learn. And then as they are feeling more comfortable and confident, then you go back with them and give them your 411 on how to do it. Junior and senior students will love to share what they've learned, and I think that's great, and we should encourage that. But for the initial training, I want to ensure that they're getting accurate information. So that should come from you initially, so that they've heard it, the correct way, and they're not getting a watered down version that maybe a student thought was all that was necessary. There is a document that you can keep in your binder to mark off the various skills that need to be completed in terms of opening the operatory, the autoclave, the ultrasonic. These are just the basic ones. And then you'll see there's a monthly and a weekly section. This document is found inside the curriculum shell, so if you don't have it, you can download it and put it in your clinic binder. This is a great way to make sure that you are, keeping track of getting these things done on a day-to-day basis. When students arrive to the classroom, again, by assignment, they should prepare for the lab. And although you may have planned to do lecture first, or a review game, or a spelling quiz, or whatever else is on the lesson plans for the day, let's get that lab open first. Students look forward to that, and that way when the time comes and you're ready to use the lab, it's ready to go. So whomever that may be that heads to the lab, the first thing they're doing, of course, will be to wash their hands and prepare and use their PPE in order to start the lab opening process. What kinds of things include opening? Well, plugging in the ultrasonic, plugging in the autoclave, plugging in the view boxes, the model trimmer, the lathe. These things should all have been unplugged when you left at the end of the session. And I don't mean teacher needs to unplug them. That means the student has done so when they are doing their closing assignment. Turning on the light in the x-ray room, turning on the x-ray machine, turning on the x-ray room computer and the digital software, restocking any items in the operatory drawers that are, short, gauze, cotton rolls, suction tips, and so forth. With proper PPE, whomever is in charge for the day should, after plugging in the ultrasonic, it should be filled with water and their cleaning agent. We have two products available. We have a liquid called Biosonic, and we have tablets that are called Maxizyme. Either or is fine, and I suggest you alternate so that students get opportunities to practice with both. As an instructor, when you get there, have setting in, say, the sink, the dirty sink, a basic set of instruments, Mirror, Explorer, Cotton Plier, and have those be available for processing that day so that whomever you have assigned that duty will have to run them through the ultrasonic, rinse, package, and autoclave for dress rehearsal. I want to talk about utility gloves. I know that in many dental offices, these are sort of put to the wayside. They may have a pair and they may get used, they may not get used. We all have exam gloves and we've used them probably for years to clean up rooms and so forth. The textbook indicates, OSHA indicates, Center for Disease Control indicates, all of the reliable resources regarding infection control tell us that we should be using utility gloves when decontaminating a clinic operatory or working with instruments that have to be processed for sterilization. So as a teacher in a educational facility, we really need to mirror that standard. That means wearing gloves when handling dirty instruments and prepping them for autoclaving. It also means when decontaminating the operatory, wiping down the chairs and the units. Once that task has been completed, then you go to the sink while the gloves are still on your hands and you wash them with the antibacterial soap. Just like if you were washing your real hands, you wash your gloves with them on, rinse them well, and then you can take them off, spray them with some of your Cetalcide disinfectant spray, and pin them like shown in this image here by the fingertips and let them air dry. And you can get some little hooks for that. And this is just one example of how this is inside a cabinet drawer. These are actually not visible from the outside. They're actually hanging from the inside of a cabinet drawer. But however your classroom is set up, you can find a place to do that. And you should have several pairs, okay? Some students prefer not to, like, oh, I don't want to put on a pair of gloves that somebody else had on their hands. I'm like, okay, have them put on a pair of exam gloves first. That'll satisfy that. For sterilization of instruments, after having been processed through the ultrasonic, students should get practice on bagging and wrapping in a cassette. When they are doing bagged instruments, make sure they fold on the line so that they get a complete seal across the cellophane bag so there aren't any gaps. And then with the bag or with the cassette, of course, they're wrapping that and they're putting an indicator inside the cassette to ensure that the heat has penetrated all the way through the packaging during the cycle. And so you have your outer tape that indicates the outside got hot, and then the little strip that goes on the inside indicates that it got hot enough on the inside. Students should get practice with both. I know we have hybrid on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We want both groups, both hybrid and residential students, getting these opportunities. So really having like a Monday, Tuesday do bagging and a Wednesday, Thursday do cassettes is a great way to have it scheduled in your classroom. This is a quick look-see at some things and how it might look and should look in your clinic. Notice here that the chair was left up in the closed mode at the end of lab, so the chair is in an upright position. The water bottles were removed. The dental cart was pushed back under the cabinet there. You can see the cords are up off the floor. The rheostat is sitting on the control panel of the tray cart. This is how things should have been left at the end of the session. This allows for the cleaning people to come in and sweep, mop, vacuum, whatever, around where they need to. And again, it's promoting a clean and sanitary environment. When students come to class, they will find it that way. They'll find everything up, like, the cords are up, the chair is up, and so forth. And now when they go to open, they're going to have to then lower the chair, pull the dental cart out. They will have to take care of the water bottles, which we'll talk more about in a moment, and so forth. And so it should look something like this. The clinic, when it's prepared for treatment, everything should have been wiped down. All of the, like the bag is on the chair, the other wraps are on the handles of the lights and so forth. Everything is set up for what that procedure might be. This is just an example of that. All right, let's dig in a little deeper in terms of some other things that we need to know about opening the clinic so that we're all doing it the same way. The water bottles are taken from the countertop because they were removed the session before. So they were sitting on a paper towel to dry overnight or dry until the next session. So when opening, we go to the countertop, we take the bottle, we fill it with fresh tap water, we put a blue tab in the unit and go over to the unit and after it's been filled with water and attach it to the unit. Now the intake straw would have been covered with some sort of plastic protecting wrap. You could use an autoclave bag that you've taped over it. You could use a baggie. You could even use one of your bag chair covers. It's a little bit large for that, but cover it up so that it doesn't get dust and so forth on it when it's being exposed. The dental chairs are lowered. They're wiped down with disinfecting wipes. Remember, every surface gets wiped twice. The first wipe through is debris removal. The second wipe through is germicidal application. Okay, so make sure when your students are doing that, let them know they can use multiple wipes. One, two wipes isn't going to do it. One wipe, say, well, I'm going to wipe it twice. One with one wipe, and then second round, the alcohol and it evaporates too quickly. So it's expected that you will go through, a half a dozen or more wipes by the time you've covered all of these surfaces. We want students to not, I want them to be mindful of supplies and not be wasteful, but I also don't want them to be skimpy and then risk not having it done properly. Plastic barriers are placed on the headrest cover, which is that bag. Light handles, air water syringes, seat adjuster handles. Those are all places that we need to ensure that they are covered. When it's time to close, at the end of the session. I would look at your watch, and when you've got 15 or 20 minutes or so left of class, ask your students to begin the shutdown process. This is not your responsibility as a teacher to put everything away. So have them begin putting, shutting down the unit, cleaning up, putting their supplies away, and the instructor then supervises to ensure that that's being done properly. So what do we do? Everything is reversed from what we just spoke of. The barriers are removed, the chairs are disinfected again, the dental chairs are raised up and left up for easy sweeping and mopping. The unit bottles are removed, they're drained from the water, and they're laid on a paper towel to air dry until the next session. Cover up that intake straw with a little bag. The ultrasonic is drained, wiped out, all of the equipment's unplugged and turned off. Sinks are kept free of debris, wiped out at the end of the session. There shouldn't be leftover alginate, dental cements and such in the sink. That's one area that our cleaning crew does not typically pay attention to, and it's really our dental assistants' jobs to maintain their own workspace. So make sure they wipe out their spaces or their sinks. Dental instruments and supplies are put back in their storage location until next time. Remember, the classroom doors do not lock, and when you are not in the classroom between sessions, it's a free-for-all. Students can wander through, and they might just have a curious mind as to what's going on in dental and want to kind of peek around, and this is how things come up missing. So you really need to put your items away when you're done with them. The x-ray machine is turned off. Everything in there is turned off. If your digital sensors, if your x-ray door can be locked, then your sensors may stay in the x-ray room, ensuring that the door is locked when you leave, okay? If your door does not lock, then the sensors must be removed and stored in a locked cabinet. As small as these are, they are very, very expensive. They run anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000 a piece. You really don't want to be held responsible for their loss. So please make sure they are kept in a safe place when they are not being utilized. Let's talk about personal protective equipment. Okay, anytime students or you are in the lab area and we are doing lab activities, we should be wearing our PPE, and that includes, of course, eye protection, your mask, your gloves, your gown or lab jacket. It's important that we enforce this. Again, in a dental office, this would be expected. What else do we do in terms of maintenance? Every day, flush the water through the air water syringes at the start of lab, before and after each patient, or procedure, I should say, and then at the end of lab. When you are utilizing your hand pieces for practice, make sure then they are lubricated properly before and after use and autoclaved. Our eye wash station. This should be checked weekly. The results should be recorded on the checklist that you maintain in your clinic binder. It is OSHA required. If it is not working properly, of course, contact your campus administrator right away to get a ticket put in to have this addressed. It takes all of 30 seconds. Go over, turn the water on. Is the water coming out of the eye holes? So it's really not a big deal, but you must do it, okay, in order to be compliant. There is a checklist. It looks like this. If you do not have it, it is also in the curriculum shell. You can print this off. Each checklist allows for 3 separate dates. So as you're looking at this will do 3 weeks worth of eye wash station checks. But you'll see you have to mark off the boxes and sign and date it. So if an OSHA inspector came to campus, they would absolutely want to see this. So please don't skimp. Please do not forget to do this. Ultrasonic maintenance. Okay, so on a daily basis, this is filled and drained after every session. We don't leave the same solution in all day. I know in a dental office, if you're working an 8-hour shift, that solution probably stays there all day unless, you're in an oral surgeon's office and the water just gets really cloudy fast because of blood and debris. Absolutely, 100%. Our solution's going to look clear from start to finish because we're not processing dirty instruments. However, we're doing this for students to have the opportunity to practice the skill. So we are cheating them if we're not giving them that opportunity. So I want morning and evening students to have their own opportunity to open their lab as if it were 7:30 in the morning with their first person starting at 8 o'clock. All right, so morning students, they will drain this during their closing procedures. Evening students will then walk in and find it ready to be prepped and filled. Okay. Um, After it's been drained, you want to, students need to know that they should rinse out any debris. They can spray it with some acetaldehyde spray, wipe it with a germicidal wipe to help disinfect it because we know it is a cesspool. And then stack the basket on top of the unit for better circulation. Studies show that microbes are less likely to grow in higher numbers if it's a dry environment rather than a warm, moist environment. So allowing for that air circulation helps to improve sanitation. It's always going to be filthy. We should never touch it with our bare hands, regardless, but we're just trying to, improve upon it as best we can. Weekly, it should be tested with a small strip of aluminum foil. This is discussed in your textbook, and students are actually trained to do this in Mod 2 when they're learning how to use the autoclave for proficiency. Granted, they will be using it regularly in your classroom regardless, so the proficiencies for Mod 2 should actually go really fast for you because if you're having your students use their ultrasonic and the autoclave, on a day-to-day basis, this is going to be a piece of cake for them. They're going to love Mod 2 because they can burn through those proficiencies really fast. Waterline maintenance is hugely important. This is waterline safety. On a weekly basis, you are to run the cleaner, which is Ultra, through the lines, and it should sit in the lines overnight. So this is a partnership between the evening and the morning classrooms. If you have two programs on your campus, evening will start the ritual and morning will finish it. Okay, you need to have decide when it is you're going to do it. If it's going to be Monday to Tuesday or Tuesday to Wednesday or Wednesday to Thursday, just do not do it on a Thursday or a Friday and let it set over the weekend. According to the directions, the solution is very harsh. It will damage the lines. So it has to only be in there for a 24-hour time span, and then it must be flushed with water. So coordinate this and so that it's done without fail every single week. We must document this. This is done in both chairs. And this is the document that you will use for that. This can be found in the curriculum shell as well. And you must record the completion of this. An additional piece of maintenance for the water bottle. Thursdays, the water bottle should be disinfected with a 10-to-1 water to bleach ratio for 10 minutes. So as students are cleaning up for the day, they can, take the water bottles off first thing, get the bleach water in, let it sit in the sink while they go back and wipe down the units and put away supplies. And, 10 minutes will go by rather quickly and they can come back to this and then finish it up. But then the bottles are rinsed very thoroughly with water so they don't smell chlorine-ish. And then they are to be turned upside down on the paper toweling to dry over the weekend, and the intake straw is covered with a plastic bag. Okay. Thursdays are also the day that you run Vacusol through the lines for both Chair 1 and Chair 2. Granted, we do not use fluoride in the lines. We aren't sucking up blood. We're not sucking up a lot of saliva, a little, but a lot, not much. We're not sucking up really anything that could get the lines very gummy. But again, this is dress rehearsal for your students. We're teaching them skills regarding maintenance that they will need to apply in the workplace or should be applying in the workplace. So Thursdays, suction through the lines. Again, morning and evening classes do this. I know it seems redundant. Again, there's really nothing there to clean in the first place. This is just dress rehearsal. So please, regardless of whether you're a morning or an evening student, do the ritual from, A to Z as if it were your, last thing before you walk out the door for the weekend kind of thing. We want students to treat this as if this is their dental office. Traps. Each unit has a trap. Again, there won't be any amalgam in it. There won't be any broken tooth structure. There won't be any blood clots or anything nasty in there because all we ever do is suck up water with suction practice. And that's okay. Again, it should be removed every Friday or Thursday and replaced with a new one, of course, with proper PPE and so forth. So have your students do that. The processor, all right? Most of you have a PeriPro. Some of them may not be working like they should, and you're using them for demonstration only. But regardless, we keep that PeriPro on site for at the very least demonstration. The unit does come in and out. It's called a transport, and part of the process in maintaining a PeriPro is using fresh water every day. And so, although we don't use this other than Mod 6, you can still have your students prep it with fresh water every day, filling it and then draining it at the end of the session. They can then, the transport goes in the unit for the session, and then at the closing, it is removed and rinsed with water, tap water, and placed on the tray to air dry. Now, granted, if it's not Mod 6, there will not be any developer or fixer on the transport, but again, this is all mock rehearsal, so by rinsing it under the water, we're training them that that's what you would do, is you would rinse that chemical off the unit before it was allowed to air dry. Thursday is weekly maintenance on the PeriPro. So what you do is you take the transport out. It is sprayed with this Spray 2000. It's allowed to sit there for 10 minutes or so, and then lightly rubbed with the sponges that come with it and rinsed, and then it's allowed to air dry over the weekend. Again, you'll only have fixer and developer in the unit during Mod 6. Once Mod 6 is completed, get rid of the solutions. You'll put them in your ChemGon container, and that will remain empty for the other 5 mods. You'll be able to take film x-rays and hand dip them in your mini chairside darkroom if you want to, and that's totally fine, and I think they should continue to get practice with film, but most of their practice, of course, should be with digital, since really that's the direction dentistry is headed. Quarterly maintenance on the PeriPro involves taking the transport out, putting it in this tub, and using this 2000 plus solution. Follow the directions that come with the packaging. It will tell you it needs to soak for so long, and then you'll lightly scrub it, rinse it, and let it air dry. The mini chairside dark room really doesn't have a lot of maintenance other than we want to keep it clean. So as spills and such happen, that should all be wiped out. Fresh water every day, and then the chemicals need to be replaced as needed. They do oxidize, even with a tight lid. They do oxidize after a week or so. So change those out as needed. The daylight window should be wiped free of spatter and debris, and when you're not using it, the lid should be propped open. There's actually a crease in it to allow for ventilation. The chemical fumes in there are actually quite potent, so they do say to leave the lid off. Okay, if your unit's a little different than this, then you can adjust it accordingly, but most of ours look similar to this one. Let's talk about your autoclave for a moment. Monthly cleaning is important. We certainly don't use our autoclave like a dental office. We're not sterilizing 8, 10, 12 hours a day. So it doesn't get grimy like most do in a real office, but they do need to be cleaned because we are using them a couple of times a day. Use the Omni Cleaner, follow the directions on the label, use distilled water, which by the way we buy with petty cash money. Buy at your local Walgreens, Walmart, some store like that. There are maintenance instructions that come in the user's manual with your autoclaves, and they're all a little bit different, but please make sure you've read through them to make sure that you are following the directions specific to your unit. Many of them will say clean the door gasket with a mild detergent and wash with a sponge every day. All right, that's what this one says. Weekly, clean the air jets, and it tells you how to do that. Put some oil in the door pins. I mean, how many of us are doing that? So I want to remind you, please, please look at your owner's manuals. Make sure you know what your unit needs. We really need to maintain this equipment. It's very expensive, and we want it to last, as it should. One thing I wanted to show you about many of our autoclaves look very similar to the one in this picture. I know some of you have different units, but those of you that have this particular unit, this is one thing that's required in the owner's manual, and it's kind of weird if you don't know what it's referring to. If you look at this image in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see I've got two things circled. There's one little thing on the top that looks sort of like a paper clip. And then there's another ring, that's the lower circle. It almost looks like a key ring. That key ring is on a spring, and what the instructions tell you to do is pull on that ring a few times. There's a spring in there, kind of go boing, 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 but pull it back and forth a few times, and then on that upper little like paper clip thing, you twist it back and forth. Don't pull on it, just twist it back and forth with your fingers. This view is looking into the water reservoir. Okay, so this is inside the autoclave. What this does is it cleans out the air jet that's in there. Apparently carbon can build up in there after extended periods of use, and it can reduce its effectiveness. So you're to do that on a weekly basis, and it takes literally 20 seconds. Twist, 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 pull, 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 and you're out. The vacuum unit that you have either in another room adjacent to your classroom or maybe down the hall in another room, oftentimes because it does make a lot of noise with the compressor and so forth, that VacuStar unit has a trap, and it collects anything that made it through the lines past the trap in the unit. It's like a secondary filter, if you will. This trap must be replaced on a monthly basis. Again, it will always be empty because we're not sucking up amalgam and broken tooth structure and so forth, but we do need to remove it. Now, if it sits there for too long, the jelly jar seal will begin to rot, and you'll begin to get water on your floor, and it will cause tile damage. Looking at this one here on the screen, you'll see that jar will actually begin to crack if it's sat on there too long and deteriorate. This can be prevented by simply replacing it once a month. It just unscrews. It's really no big deal. You go in there with your PPE on, maybe put some paper toweling underneath it, unscrew it, screw a new one on. It takes, again, 1 full minute at best to do. And this should be done on a monthly basis. Let's talk about spore testing for a moment. Spore testing is done the first week of each new module. When you do this, please do not overpack the autoclave. Actually, don't ever overpack the autoclave, not just when you're spore testing, just never. It's just not a good idea. You will not get good heat penetration. So we want the trays to be filled, but not overfilled. And I think we all know that, but just a gentle reminder there. We use the spores from SPS Medical, and they provide a mailing label or mailing envelope for you to fill out, and so after you've run the cycle, you fill out the label and everything and send that off to be processed. This should then be documented in your spore testing binder on your log sheet. This can be an alternated task between morning and evening so that both groups of students get their opportunity to learn this skill. So this is primarily a lead instructor responsibility in terms of gathering the results, but I think it's good for everybody to know what this process is in case you are a lead, or you will become a lead, or you are filling in for a lead, or, it's just good we're all on the same page. So the spore test is to be mailed in. A week and a half to 2 takes a little bit of time. You'll go to the website and you'll print off the certificate that says, we passed, basically. Failed tests have to be documented and repeated. If the second attempt also fails, then you need to ask your AD to put in a ticket to have it repaired, and you should not use your autoclave during that time. Document all of your findings, okay? It's very important to document all of this. This is overseen by the Department of Public Health, and you could potentially be audited, so we want to make sure you have all of your ducks in a row. If you have a failed test, SPS will generally call the campus and let you know right away, so that you can address that immediately. All of the test results should be stored in the spore testing section of your clinic binder or in a separate binder if you have it separate. All of this information is available in the curriculum site in terms of where the website is and how to obtain that report and so forth. So I'm going to leave it at that here. If you have more questions or need more help with that, please let me know. Let's talk a minute about dosimeters. First week of each new mod, dosimeters are ordered for new students, seniors who will be leaving soon for externship, and anyone who is pregnant. They will need to wear a fetal dose monitor in addition to their general dosimeter. So if you have a student or maybe a faculty member discloses that they are now pregnant, you will need to have them wear a fetal dose monitor. You'll also need to have them fill out a declaration of pregnancy, and that is not a form. It's literally they can handwrite it or they can write it out on paper or type it, but it says my name, the date, I declare I'm pregnant, estimated date of conception, estimated date of delivery, and it's signed. That is then scanned and emailed to the director, who will upload it to that student's file. You'll keep the original in your dosimeter binder, okay, until they graduate, and then that can be shredded. Signed dosimeter externship instructions by the student, same policy. Scan it. One copy goes, the original goes in the book, the copy goes to the director to upload to the student's file. We have a lot of classroom binders, and they're all contain very important information, some of which is actually, state and federally regulated or required. So it's important that we maintain them and keep them in a conspicuous place so that they can be found if needed. If you're not there and the director needs to go find your dosimeter binder, it needs to be accessible. So keep them all together in one place. Have like a label on the spine of each one so that it's easy to say, oh, that's the dosimeter binder. Oh, that's the equipment binder. I mean, that's the way. If you need binders, ask your director to order them for you. So let's talk specifically about the clinic binder. First of all, it should have tabbed sections. One would include the weekly and monthly student clinic duties. So a list of who's doing what, right? Who's got to do who's doing the autoclave, who's doing the ultrasonic, who's doing the x-ray room. Then a checklist, with that says we're going to mark those things off when they're done. And there should be a weekly waterline maintenance checklist tab, an eye wash station checklist tab, and you can have your spore testing in here as well. And notice that there's some asterisks there because some prefer to keep it in a separate binder of its own, which is totally fine. Also, opt-in clipboards, or you could use individual binders for each one of those. You could have an individual binder for the eye wash station, an individual binder for the water line, and one for clinic. That's up to you, but we need to be consistent with it. We need to make sure that all of those records are being maintained and they're kept in a agreed upon place so anybody can find them if they need them. And again, all of these checklists are found within the curriculum folder. Let's talk about your SDS binder. Your safety data sheets are in your classroom, and then they are also in the campus binder. So you have two binders on campus that have the same information. These SDS sheets are kept indefinitely. Even if we discontinue using a product, you do not remove it from your book. It stays there. OSHA mandates a minimum of 30 years. So just keep it in there. If you have a sample delivered or given to you, or some supplies that are donated that you bring into the classroom, that's totally fine. We love to show students new products and so forth, but you will need to get an SDS sheet for us. You can go to the manufacturer website, or you can go ahead, Reshine, print off two copies. One goes in the binder and one goes in the campus binder. Okay. Once that product is no longer used, let's say it's a sample of, say, some, fluoride varnish, and you've opened it, you showed it to your students, and, we did our little show and tell with it, and it's done, then you can make a note on the SDS sheet that it's no longer being used, or it was a sample that was, delivered, but still don't pull the sheet. SDS sheet, once it goes in the book, it never leaves. Okay. So again, we welcome samples, we welcome supplies. It's totally fine. Just make sure you have that SDS sheet on file. One thing that's part of your SDS binder, and it kind of also falls into OSHA, your OSHA binder as well. But remember, if you take anything out of its original packaging, it does need a HAZCOM label on it. So for example, your ultrasonic that holds ultrasonic solution, your fixer and developer tanks inside your auto processor are good examples of that. If you have an alcohol dispenser that you've poured or rubbing alcohol into, those things need that label with the completed label. All right. So that's part of your SDS, but I'd also say you do have a OSHA binder that has the HAZCOM communication standard in it, along with many other things related to OSHA that you should need to maintain as well. Okay, let's talk about your equipment binder. Your equipment binder maintains copies of your owner's manuals, your warranty information. It should also contain a list of the serial numbers of the equipment held in your classroom. So your handpiece serial numbers, you have a serial number on your x-ray machine, you have a serial number on your autoclave. Look around your classroom and make sure that you have serial numbers all just listed on a sheet of paper, say in the front pocket of your binder. Any missing manuals for the equipment that you have can usually be found online, either from the manufacturer website, or you can simply Google it, do a Google search for your particular brand of autoclave model number and just say PDF owner's manual, and oftentimes it will pop right up. So easy, and that's kept in your classroom as well. So your OSHA binder, which I kind of alluded to already, should have all of the contents related to OSHA and HAZCOM. The individual pages in there do have blank sections that have to be handwritten in, like where the fire extinguisher is kept and what your fire plan is. And oh gosh, I forget all of them now. That should have all been filled out, but do double check to make sure that has happened. If it hasn't, then it needs to be, and you can talk to your director about that. Each clinic has its own OSHA binder, so yours would mimic the one in, say, the MA classroom. So you can kind of put your heads together and make sure that that's filled out properly. If your OSHA binder is missing, then all of the pages, and I forget now how many, there's probably 100 or more, there's a whole zip file of the book in the curriculum shell that you can download and reprint off and basically recreate the binder if it's missing. Okay. You should have a clinic binder that has your supply ordering information for both Henry Schein and McKesson. It should have the supply lists that have the items numbers and the brands that we're using. Also the log information for both websites. The lead is the one who typically is doing the ordering, but again, leads, if you are on vacation or you are out sick and the director or another dental instructor has to step in and place an order, we want them to have access to that. So keep that information in the supply binder. The supply lists are available in the curriculum shelf. You can download them and print them off and keep them in there. Let's talk about recycling. We have two recycling products. We have one called the Amalgam jar or container. It holds scrap, and then the Foil Gone, which holds lead foil from your X-ray thing. So these are to be returned within 12 months to the WasteWise company. They're ordered from Henry Schein, but they go back to WasteWise for recycling. And regardless of whether the container is full, they must go back. Now, these things are expensive. If you price them on Henry Schein, they are well over $100 for basically an empty box and an empty jar. But so with the price that you pay, it does include a prepaid shipping label. So Please do not use campus postage to mail these back. How do I get the label? Well, you go to wastewise.com and you print it off, and it will prompt you for a number that you find on the box or the jar, and you'll type that in, and it will print out your label. You do need a login for that website. So if you are new and you've not already set up a login for WasteWise, then call the phone number that's on the packaging. It's a 1-800 number. Tell them who you are and get your free account set up with them. Let's talk about lab equipment now for a moment. Things like your alginate bowls, your spatulas, your lab knives, polishing discs, and other things like that should be stored in cabinets and drawers and not sitting out. Okay. The vacuum former can be removed from the countertop when it's not being used. Again, I like it clean, crisp, uncluttered. Your composite curing light should not be left on the charger 24/7. It will actually overcharge the battery and cause it to stop working. It's just like they tell you, say your cell phone should not be on a charger 24/7. In a dental office, I know it's common to leave it on its base, but remember, you're used to doing composites day in and day out. 5 days charging that light, how many umpteen times a day? That's a different scenario than in a classroom where you're not practicing composite restorations 8 hours a day and activating that light 25 times. It can sit there for days and just not be used. So once it's charged, take it off its charging base and store the units next to it, or so forth in a lab equipment should always be kept clean. These are actual pictures that I have taken from equipment found on our Ross campuses. I do quite a bit of visiting the campuses, and of course, when I'm there, I always love to spot check. And these are we should keep our supplies clean, right? So let's not let this happen. All right. Again, I'm not asking you to be responsible for this solely. Your students are using this equipment. Allow time for them to clean up after themselves properly and put it away properly. Okay. This is just really disappointing. Again, countertops clean, clutter-free, sink should be free from debris. Your dental lathe pan should be cleaned out of, there shouldn't be pumice laying in the bottom. The plastic shield should be wiped off after use so it doesn't look spattered. Clinic drawers should be tidy and neat, right? Just like in the dental office. I really do love this middle image is that plastic container is actually a silverware drawer. Like you buy this at the dollar store, and it's to organize your knives, forks, and spoons. It works really well. It fits in the drawer nicely, and you can see here it holds all of the basic supplies. So one item for now, well, I say the dollar store, it's actually what, $1.25 now. For $1.25, you really get your bang for your buck on this because you can organize a lot of things very neatly, in that upper drawer. But here's some other pictures that you can see as well. This is how it should look like. If I were to step into your classroom and do a quick look-see, it should look organized and neat like this. About signage for a moment. Your eyewash station requires a sign via OSHA. If that sign is missing, it needs to be replaced. That is a ticket item. Put it in a ticket, and one will be ordered and sent to you. There should be a HazCom poster posted in your clinic. If you don't need that, that actually comes from Henry Schein. And then where your biohazard kit and your spill kit are maintained, there should be a sign on the door that's like big, like you can see this one, it's a big red sign that says this is where it's located. And it should be in an unlocked cabinet, because if there were an emergency, we don't want somebody, scrambling to find a set of keys to get the door open to get to the spill kit. So it should be in an unlocked cabinet or drawer, and it needs to be clearly labeled so that in the occasion of emergency, it could be found. All right, this is also a place that you could put some first aid supplies like Band-Aids and so forth. Let's talk about the plaster trap. This needs to be changed periodically. Again, it doesn't get used to the extent a dental office would, so it's not something that has to be changed on a monthly basis even, but it will get full. We have two styles at Ross, depending on your campus and the way it was set up. Some of them look like these big paint buckets, and others are more of a like a large pickle jar that screws on and off. If you have the Glico trap, basically it unscrews, you dump out the waste and this wipe it out and just screw it back in. If you have that big bucket, then the hoses disconnect and a new bucket is ordered from Henry Schein and it's reattached. This can be done either by you or you may request the cleaning people that come to your campus to change this out for you. But please watch it so that it doesn't overflow. The other thing I want to mention about this is that when you are using plaster and stone, make sure your students are only using the sink where this is attached so that they don't wreck your pipes. Let's talk about the x-ray room for a moment. Let's keep it organized and efficient. These are some examples of ways to keep your room looking tidy and neat. This on the wall here is a shoe rack. How handy, right? And it's got all of the pouches are holding the rins and so forth. Also a small little, I don't call it a Rubbermaid drawer unit. I find that at these secondhand stores, if you need something like that, if you go to a secondhand store like a Goodwill or Salvation Army or I don't know what you might have in your community, you probably can pick up something like that for a few dollars, and you know, could very easily get that approved for your director ahead of time. If you said, "Hey, I'm going to go to the thrift store to see if I can find a unit like this," would you know, can I get it approved to be paid for out of petty cash? If she says, "Oh yeah, if it's under $5, I'll pay for it," great. If not, then you know, don't store things in there. That's all I have to say. But something like that works really well. Again, digital sensors are only kept in the room if you can lock the door when you leave. Let me remind you, they are the price of a used car. All right, again, $6,000. Don't leave it laying around to show up, have it come up missing. It's just you don't want to be responsible for that. So always lock it up when you're not using it. Cabinet organization, it should look tidy and neat. Again, labeling, make sure things can be easily found. So if you're using bins, put a label on it. Inside here are, you know, these are mixing cements, these are mixing pads, this has got, you know, gauze in it, or whatever it might be. But these are just examples of different kinds of ways that you can organize. Let's be very mindful of the products that we're using in our lab. Many of the materials have expiration dates. So a couple of things. First of all, don't stockpile. All right, we get the best pricing whether I buy one or whether I buy 10 of those. We get the best price because of the quantity. We have, you know, over 30 some campuses. You can't imagine what our budget is per month. So we get the best price regardless. So you don't need to stockpile and buy a whole case of something. In fact, you know, usually I will ixnay that when it comes through anyways, but still. Products like your Cavi wipes, if they sit there too long and they don't get used, they will expire and now they are ineffective. And if you're using an expired wipe, you're not killing the germs and disinfecting the unit like you think you are. So please watch due dates. Also cements, they will not mix properly. They might not set. Impression materials would be another example of this. I often find when I visit campuses and I do a spot check, I can pull out I can almost always find something that's expired. And I know some teachers go, well, it's just for practice. It doesn't really matter anyways, but it does to me. All right. I think we're teaching bad habits when we tell students it's okay to use something expired because it's not. In a dental office, it would never be acceptable. Two, it may not manipulate the way it should because it's old. It may not dry. I mean, there's no good reason to use an expired product. And most importantly, the things like our Cavi wipes, our sanding wipes, and our seal side sprays, when those expire, they are not effective, and that's dangerous. It's downright dangerous. So, seal side spray, You dilute the solution, water. It's the yellow stuff in the bottle. All right. If you're not following me, it's a disinfection spray that you make. Follow the directions. It'll tell you on there how long that solution is good for, and then replace it. If you make a bottle of that and it sits for 6 months, I'm telling you right now that is no longer effective. So follow the instructions. The sinks under the cabinet is often where a lot of oddball things go, a lot of our big jugs of cleaners. It too needs to be maintained in an orderly fashion so we can find what we're looking for. So this is an example of that. Each campus should have a cubby for their student where they can keep their gown and their face shield, their goggles. Those are there for, it's almost like a little locker, if you will. They should obviously never keep anything valuable there, but that's their spot. When they graduate and move on, then that cubby is reassigned to a new student. I will tell you that for mock procedures, and we'll talk about this again in a moment, they may recycle their gown simply out of environmental reasons. We're not dropping all of that in the trash. But if you're doing a live procedure with a human being, then of course that gets dumped away, immediately, so we don't share any germs with each other. Preparing for clinical lab, this is important. On the first day of every new mod, go over the Ross Universal Precautions document. They do get a copy during enrollment, but at that time they do not have any medical dental experience, so they could look at this and not have a clue what it means. So please make sure you take a copy and review it on the first day of every new mod with everybody. It does not hurt for everybody to hear this. So it's not just new students. Make sure everybody hears the message. It's just like watching the saliva is red video and watching the bloodborne pathogen. We do it every first day of every mod. Review, review, review. It's very, very important. On the Ross website, for more information, you can download the Ross Student Guidelines Handbook, and it does cover the dress code and the universal precautions. And this is just kind of where you can find it, but the catalogs are at the bottom there. A couple of things important to remember about the Ross Universal Precautions. One is hand washing, making sure that our students thoroughly understand the importance of when they start in the lab, the first thing they're going to do is, cleanse their hands. And the first wash of the day is always with soap and water, and then subsequent washes can be done with gel, and then they should wash with soap and water before they leave. That is the OSHA standard. Footwear needs to be protective so that if they drop a scaler, a needle, a pair of scissors, that they're not going to gouge or poke themselves. We don't really have dirty needles per se, but still that also falls into that category. So shoes should be OSHA appropriate. Closed toes, heels, fluid and puncture resistant. Hair should be pulled back and out of the way so that it's not dangling in somebody's face or getting sprayed with bio germs when you're doing a procedure. So ponytail it, clip it, barrettes, things like that. I know some of you teachers keep a little baggie of, rubber bands in your desk drawer for those emergencies when one of the young ladies along here says, "Oh, I forgot to bring something." They just pull out a rubber band and have them, rubber band their hair back. Your nails groomed, unpolished, no more than a half inch above. No artificial is allowed. This is all part of the handbook. You can find it, read it for yourself. It's also in the Ross Universal Precautions document. In terms of full PPE, if you are doing an actual dental procedure, skills must be used when you're using with a real procedure, all disposable PPE. If it's simulated, fake, whatever you want to call it, then you can use a traditional lab coat in lieu of a gown, but you have to differentiate between the two. For actual clinic procedures, you want to use a level 3 surgical mask for the live, anything creating biospatter, and a disposable gown. So suction practice is the one that comes to mind particularly. Long hair again is pulled up and out of the way, and again shoes are impervious to sharps. Notice here too that we're using face shields because we can dispose of those. rather than goggles that have to just be sanitized and recycled. So face shields for actual. For simulated, a gown is okay, but they can, if they want to, instead they may wear a lab jacket. They still are required to wear their um, gloves. Here they will use a level 1 procedure mask because it's all fake, and they may use goggles instead of a face shield if they prefer. Again, their gloves will be sanitized after use, of course. However, they do have that option if they so choose. And again, long hair up, shoes are OSHA approved. Here's a great example of how not to wear PPE. Take a look at this instructor. She's wearing prescription lenses instead of her safety goggles or a face shield. The two students here don't have any eye protection on whatsoever, and nobody is wearing a lab coat. All right. I know sometimes we get hot. We have to be able to work past that because it's just not the way it works in a dental office. We have to protect ourselves. Take a look at these pictures really quick here, and do you see anything that stands out to you as wrong? I'll just put them out quickly. The first upper right side picture, the person there has her hair down, look, it's getting right. I mean, imagine the spatter that's in her long hair. She's not wearing a lab jacket, not wearing eyewear. The gal in the middle, gosh, she looks pretty good. She's got a lab jacket on, she's got her gloves, face shield, mask, but look at her hair. And over here on the far right, this gal has got everything on, but notice her lab jacket is not buttoned. All right. Your lab jacket is only going to protect you if it's worn properly. So that means buttoning or zipping it up. About these lab pictures, look at these students over here. So on the far right, these gals don't have lab jackets on. The one gal doesn't have her hair down, or has her hair down, I should say. They're not, no gloves. That's just a disaster waiting to happen. Over here in this far right, again, no lab jackets, no eyewear protection, no masks. These are some good examples of what PPE should be looking like in your classroom, okay? Everybody needs to be safe and protected. Again, we set the example for how we want students to not only perform in the classroom, but when they're out on externship, we want them to make you proud. And then when they go on to find gainful employment, we want them to practice, proper, safe infection control procedures. So let's keep everybody safe. Like I said, as instructors, we are role models. They will follow our lead. So please be conscientious of your PPE. Make sure you're wearing it appropriately. That means, if you get hot, it doesn't mean you push the sleeves up. It doesn't mean you unzip your lab jacket. Wear it the way you're supposed to and coach your students to wear it properly as well. Talk for a minute about your lab time. So remember, the time students get in the lab with you really builds their confidence. Without the adequate hands-on training, they will be feeling unconfident, unprepared, and they may even become discouraged. So although the academics is very important, the lecture, the review, the homework, the tests, the ICAs, all of those obviously are part of the program and are necessary. It's the lab time that students not only look forward to, but expect and need in order to be successful dental assistants. So make sure you manage your time appropriately to allow plenty of time for lab every single day. If you look at a typical session, we have a 4.5-hour class period. All right, that's a long time. So with that being said, on Mondays and Wednesdays, if you have on-ground students, we absolutely have to provide lecture. And on Mondays and Wednesdays, it's a combined lecture that covers Mondays and Tuesdays topics. And then on Wednesday, it's a combined lecture that covers Wednesdays and Thursdays topics. So I recognize that will take a bit of time, but it certainly won't take 4.5 hours. So even on Mondays and Wednesdays, there still should be time available for you to provide lab activities to your students. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's designated lab the entire time, and that is for both hybrid and residential that are there. So absolutely should be the focus of the day, lab, lab, lab. I've talked about this on many of my lead calls. I've brought it up with some of you individually on individual training sessions, but I want to bring it up here so that it's available for everybody. And that is working in your lab using clinic rotation stations to accommodate all of your students during lab. So based on how many students you have, this particular scenario says you have 12 students, okay? You may only have 5, you may only have 2, you might have 18. So you can adjust it accordingly. But this will give you an example of how working with stations can keep everybody busy in the lab simultaneously. What does this mean? This does mean you have to be proactive in planning your lab time. Station 1, chair 1. That's a new skill that you're working with the students on that's maybe for proficiency. Chair 2 could be a core skill that is set up for a previously learned skill. It could be, depending on what mod they're in, what they've done, what they haven't done. You could have the third station be the x-ray room. So for those who completed mod 6, they could go in and take a set of bite wings or do a full FMX, build up their speed. You could have another station set up specifically for Dentrix. It could be a computer, not even at a student's desk, to get up and go to, and there could be a list of things that they have to do that you write on the whiteboard. Schedule Tiffany Abbott for a prophy, schedule her for a root canal, post a payment of $100, update her health history. She's now allergic to penicillin. I mean, whatever, you can go with that. Another station could be on a countertop or a table where there are some instruments out that have to be identified, or they can build a tray or mix a cement, or take vital signs. That could even be done at a desk. And then the last station would be an ICA. Okay, every class period has at least one, if not 2 ICAs. Rather than sitting at your desk and twiddling your thumbs for 30 minutes while they can all sit at their desk and quietly complete their ICA, just incorporate it into your rotation station so that whether you have 6 stations like this, or if you have a smaller group and you only have 3 or 4 stations, one of those stations would be the ICA, and you watch the clock, and every, say, 15 minutes or so, we get up and switch, kind of thing. This works very, very well. It maximizes your time in the lab with your students. Everything gets accomplished as long as you're managing and watching the clock. This is just an example of some of the standard trays that you might be using in your lab. These were some great pictures that were sent to me, and I thought I would share with you using Ross Instruments, so you could kind of get a sense of what your trays might look like. We want to keep it consistent with, what our textbook says, and so following along, that your trays should look similar to what the books do. What have we covered in this presentation? We have talked about clinic organization. We have talked about the daily. We've talked about clinic maintenance, both daily, weekly, and even quarterly. And lastly, we talked about maximizing student clinic opportunities using rotation activity stations. We've covered a lot of territory today, and I really appreciate your time. I think that this, if we can all follow these guidelines in providing this kind of environment for our students will be much more successful, and our classrooms will be much more organized and sanitary. So with that, I will complete this presentation with leaving you my contact information. As always, I am here to make sure that you have what you need to be successful. My office telephone number is listed here. My email address is listed. Should you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you in any way I possibly can. And with that, I tell you thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it, and I wish you all a great day.